Welcome back to the Chip Lunch Podcast. My name is Joel. I am the digital pastor here at Soul Revival Church, and soon to be Joel Revival Church, according to Braden.
The takeover.
Schism, then conquer.
A schism and conquer. SNC.
Yeah.
Yep. Strength and conditioning.
Yes.
Braden, welcome.
Shampoo and conditioner.
Oh, which one's better? I
don't need either.
Happy Gilmore. Happy
No,
Gilmore.
it's Billy Madison.
It's Billy Madison.
Oh, it is
Billy
Billy
Madison.
Madison.
That's when he goes
He's
to
in the
school.
bathtub.
Yeah, Happy Gilmore's the golf one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well done.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
You guys just talk amongst yourselves.
We will.
We
until
normally end up doing that.
Yeah, we will until it's time to introduce our guest. Anyway, Braden, you got 2 drinks.
Yep.
Any particular reason for that?
No.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast, Ross.
Hi.
How are you?
Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Can't complain.
No, can't complain.
No.
Okay.
Well, I can, but
Yeah,
I've got no obvious reason to.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Well, welcome to the podcast. Did you have a good trip here?
Yes, I guess.
Yeah. You were late?
I was.
Any particular reason?
I had to make a stop on the way that took longer than I
Are
anticipated.
you in the mafia? So I had to make a stop and pick up your protection money.
Leave the gun.
You haven't watched many money. Yeah. The cannoli isn't the cannoli the pickup though? Sometimes they're like,
Well,
get the
that's in
cannoli.
The Godfather, isn't it?
Is it?
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Leave the gun. Take the cannoli. Cool.
Anyway.
You haven't seen The Godfather, Ross? Have you seen any mafia movies, or are you just
Yeah,
tuning us out?
not recently.
Oh,
A bit of
okay.
both, really.
Right? It just sounded like you were making your pickups for the protection money.
I had to buy something for my car, which is uninteresting, so I was trying to brush past it, and you've just...
I don't think you've realised, but this podcast is actually about all the uninteresting things in people's lives. 'cause
Okay,
that's what
I've
makes it
recently
interesting.
upgraded the distributor in my Mercedes to an electronic distributor,
Yes.
and now I went and ordered a new ignition coil for it.
Very good. What is a distributor?
It distributes things. No,
Thanks, man.
it spins as the engine spins, and the wires come out of it to the spark plugs, and so it causes the order of the spark plugs. But it's in newer cars, they probably don't have a distributor
Yes, I see.
because the computer does a little.
Yes. The timing of the spark, is that what it's
Mhm.
doing? There we go. See?
I mean,
I knew what he was talking about once he explained it properly. It distributes things.
sorry, bro. Come and fact check me.
Oh, that's what I've got the computer for.
What do you even have on that computer?
I have the first question, which is, how do you eat your hot chips?
My hot chips, chicken salt,
Yes.
a little bit of barbecue sauce.
Oh, that's a recent... Not many people said barbecue sauce. Keep going, sorry.
That's about it. One of the things that I remember from Quinn's wedding speech was
Your wife, Quinn.
my wife. Yes, not
Your
some
f-
other random person's wedding speech, but
Yeah.
my wife, when we had the moment to talk about each other,
Your favourite wife?
is that
Tell the story and then I'll explain the favourite wife thing, sorry.
she knew that we were a good fit because I generally prefer the fatter, softer hot chips, and she likes the crispier.
Oh.
And so then if we got a bag of hot chips, then it's just worked.
Oh, wow.
Magic. Brings the tear to the
Probably
eye.
the first person to bring up their wedding speech answering the chip question.
Yeah, I think that's
It's
right.
very special.
Well, yeah.
This is why you're on the
like
podcast.
we've been married for nearly 15 years, and that's what I remember from her wedding speech.
It was a good one.
Good one. Yeah, there's lots of love. Yeah.
I feel like I do remember her saying that. But, as you said, it was such a long time ago.
You were there.
I was. Thank you.
Somewhere at the back.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I was right. I was more at the back, which is reasonable. Never forgotten it.
He's still bitter. That's why it's taken you 80 episodes to get me on. You're like, all right.
Can't invite that guy on until
No.
he apologises about where he put me at his wedding. Which isn't true, by the way. I was going to ask you one more question about the chips.
Location? Favorite?
Yeah.
Memory?
Tell me. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah, memory and location. That's what that's how it's 1A. 1A is how do you have your hot chips. 1B is now, do you have a favourite memory or like is there a particular location you like to get your chips?
We normally go to Lady Hill, which
Oh,
is
yes.
at Caringbah, Port Hacking Road. It's just the closest one to us, but it's pretty good.
Mm.
Can't complain.
Mm.
I keep saying that. Second time. No complaints here today.
That's the title of the podcast, No Complaints. I remember Lady Hill because I used to live in the similar area to you,
Yep.
where you live now.
Yep.
And I feel like the times that I went to Lady Hill was during when my dad and I were watching the Bathurst 1000. And it was like, it's lunchtime. We're going to get some burgers and scallops. So we would go up to Lady Hill Takeaway and get some burgers and scallops. And the real weird thing is that I used to say, oh, we'll turn the TV off. And Dad's like, no, leave it on. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Because it was not either, we were just thinking, he's like, just leave the TV on. I'm like, oh.
Is that just so when you got back home, it was like
straight on.
Straight on.
Warmed
You
up.
didn't-
I think so. Doesn't have time to warm up. Leave it on.
No, just minimize how many laps you miss. So you come back and you're like,
I think that might be it. But I was like, oh, okay. Or maybe he's like, so people, you know, like they've got that thing where you leave the lights on in a shop so people don't
want to
steal.
rob you. They're out.
they're out.
Oh wait, TV's on. someone must be just going to the
I heard
bathroom.
I heard him. They're going to Lady Hill.
It's like I saw the car leave, but maybe someone's still there. TV's on.
Yes. Very true. Anyway,
Did you often have much theft in your childhood that you were concerned about?
not so much possessions, but many other things were taken away in my childhood. My soul.
How did that make you feel, Joel? On Joel's podcast.
Oh, no,
Sharon-
he's
Sharon-
really going
Sharon-
to cry again now.
sharing time with Joel.
I'm really tired today. I don't know why. I had a reasonable sleep last night.
You're acting
too.
like I normally act every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had a pre-podcast coffee just to make sure.
Oh, you fight. Oh, like Chris when he had a Red Bull.
Yeah, all fired up.
Yeah, he'd been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm tired." So he has a Red Bull right before the start of the podcast. And
He
then
is an elite athlete though, so
Yeah.
he's probably training for 7 hours before.
supposedly, yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that was taken away in his childhood was his ability. Doesn't mean he's not an elite athlete. Sorry, Chris. Ross, second question. How did you become a Christian?
So I don't really have a defining date and time that I can look back on. I had to go to Sunday school,
did you? I didn't know
which was a bit of a punish at times. As 7-year-old me was
Which
complaining.
Sunday school?
It was at Gymea. So Fee taught me in year 3. I remember that just because she would have been friends with my older sister, and so
Fiona Francesconi,
Yep.
sorry. Yep.
The Thanos. of this
and
podcast.
also because, and then my other memory from Sunday school is that I was waiting to get to year 6 because Mr. C was teaching that Pete Crawshaw, and I'm like,
Nice to see.
Big fella.
he's entertaining, good value, and then he often started a Christian bookshop and stopped doing Sunday school as I finished year 5. I'm like,
That's
oh man,
devastating.
He knew you were coming.
yeah.
Yeah.
He saw you coming.
Ran away. Completely related. And then my sister Mon was a leader of the year 7 and 8 youth group. And I just started going, and I've never stopped. Yeah, I don't really know when. So sometimes, like if you got like a defining date and you're like, my life has changed then, and then you get other people who are like, oh, I've always grown up as a Christian. I'm kind of somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But without really, I can't. So sometimes I think later on, sometimes I doubt a bit, and I'm like, oh, like, am I really a Christian or whatever? Because I can't pick a time where it's changed. But then you look back and you're like, okay, the Holy Spirit has worked in me here and here. Like there's stuff that has happened, and like you see that people are Christians by stuff that happens and stuff like the way they live or whatever. I'm not saying like I'm super holy or whatever, but I can look back and be like, that was something the Holy Spirit has changed in my life. And so that was a long time ago, and I was fortunate that like a bunch of the leaders that I had there are still we're still friends now. Like both Rob and Kate Jones have led me during youth group, and now they're in my Bible study, and we're still hanging out together. I don't know, 25 plus years later, which was cool. Yeah, I don't have a particular time that I can remember, but I've certainly have been a Christian for a while.
Was there any like particular time that you were like, maybe not just going, I'm a Christian, or saying, you know, that moment that you're talking about, but was there a time where you were like, I'm not doing that, or I'm making a choice about something in regards to being a Christian?
Yeah, there's certainly times throughout your life where you're like, I should have lived more as a Christian there, or I'm taking a stand, or I'm not taking a stand. It probably more came to the fore kind of in late high school and kind of as you early uni, as you go into 18th and then 21st and whatever, and it's like, I'm not going to the pub every weekend. I'm going to go to church and going to go to Soli's, and that you start drifting away from friends from school. You still, you turn up to all the 21st, and that was probably the last time like I hung out with a lot of friends from school regularly, and then you start just heading more towards where you want to spend your time after that.
So where did you grow up?
So I lived in Gymea up until about when I was in year 7 or 8, and then lived in Caringbah. But because of that and that connection then that my sister had with Gymea, and then I started going as well, then we would keep coming back to Gymea Anglican.
And your parents aren't Christian, are they?
Uh,
Because they didn't seem like they had problems with you going to... Oh, they sent you to Sunday school?
Yeah, so Mum stopped regularly going to church after one of the previous ministers left, and then Dad grew up in a Polish Catholic church and did the altar boy stuff, and then has not... Like, they would probably call him... I don't know, actually. I don't know how to...
Christian adjacent?
Christian.
It's a term that
yeah, like they're not
uses quite often.
they're not opposed to coming to church.
Yeah,
they'll come.
times.
They'll come at Christmas and Easter. But yeah, they have their own thoughts and reasons about it.
Yeah, right. And your dad? So your dad is he a Polish immigrant? Is that right?
Yeah, he's a refugee.
Yeah.
So he came out in 1950 when he was 4. Just him and his mum. He never met his dad. His dad would have died in the war or just after the war.
Yeah.
So he was born in a refugee camp in Germany in 46. And then, I don't know how it ended up that they ended up on a boat, came to Australia. Like, it would have been pretty hard for my nan, as, I don't know, she would have been in her early 20s with a 4-year-old stuck on a boat for a couple of months, and then coming to a country where you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
So he didn't speak English until he was in school. And I don't think he had that fun an upbringing, so he doesn't really talk about it, but I'd be curious to know a bit more about it.
We'll get him on the pod. Old JB.
Yeah. So he grew up in a farm out at Riverstone. We've still got he didn't have electricity. I don't know when they got it, but he has mentioned we've got this kerosene lantern, and he had to do like his high school homework with the kerosene lantern.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Which is, so you're saying that would have been even in the...
That would have been 60s. In the 60s, I guess.
Wow.
Well, like out at Riverstone was pretty rural until the last 10, 15 years, whatever, when there've been more housing development stuff. It's my dad.
No, it's just interesting. It's always interesting to hear like people's different backgrounds. Like, as you know, like my wife, like one side of the family is Latvian, and it was because her grandma was a World War II refugee as well. So I really like hearing those stories.
Yeah, except so now the only Polishness I have is
sausages.
misspelt surname. And
Is that right? Was it misspelled?
Oh, I don't know. Someone I used to work with, she was Polish, and she reckons that it is misspelt. But anyway,
hang on, but you got to tell people what's the actual spelling now, and then
Yeah, it's not just someone being like, well, your name's spelt wrong.
Yeah, Williams.
So we pronounce it Werner, but there's probably a more correct European
Maybe
way
like
to say
Verna?
Verne, something.
Okay.
Werner, I don't know. But yeah, it has a J on the end instead of an R.
Yeah. So it's Wernej.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But why would that be misspelled?
like if it was meant to be Werner.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I don't know. It is what it is.
I don't know.
But yeah, so Dad was an only child, so I never had interaction with cousins or uncles or anything. So we never learnt Polish.
Right.
He had only spoken it to his mum, like when we were like, that's the only time I've heard him speak it.
Yeah.
And then she died when I was in year 7, maybe year 8, something like that.
Mm. And around that time also, like the immigrants who were coming into this country, they didn't want to speak their language anywhere else but at home, because they're like, you've got to assimilate, be part of it a lot of the time too. So I'm just suggesting that my suggestion is it probably
like
to a certain degree.
he would have got paid out through school
Yeah,
as
exactly.
a foreigner as well.
Yeah. Yep. Which sucks. But
Yeah.
back to you. So you moved to Caringbah.
Yep.
What primary school did you end up going to then? So you lived in Gymea.
Yeah, so I went to Gymea, then went to Sutherland in year 5 and 6.
Gymea Bay Public School, man.
Yeah.
It's the vibe. Anyway,
The
yeah.
five.
Alumni.
I went to Southo for year 5 and 6, and then went to Caringbah High.
Oh, selective.
Smarty pants.
That was Southo as well. That was the best.
Because that's an OC. That's an OC.
I passed a couple of tests.
Yeah.
One in year 4 and one in year 6.
Which one was harder, do you reckon?
I don't know. It was so far. That was so long ago.
I don't know. I did the OC one.
No
I don't know
idea.
if I did the selective one.
I
didn't get in.
No idea. I don't remember.
What's it like going to Caringbah then? We've had a couple of people when
Yeah.
you go to
Aurelia.
Aurelia. Yep.
It's fine. It's just a high school. There was probably a little bit more competitive academically, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is good in a way. It kind of pushes you a bit. Where rather than being like one of the smarter in your class, you're kind of one of many. But no, it's
Pushes
fine.
you to work a bit harder. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. To try and, I feel like I missed that at my school. I think I would have liked a little bit of that, rather than just you're all idiots. Basically, some of the teachers were not fans of my year. Anyway, what about being a Christian at Caringbah? Was there like a Christian group there or anything, or like a version of Chip Lunch or anything like that?
Yeah, there was. I sporadically attended it, and so there were Christians in my year, and they since people at the school are not just local, you're from throughout the Shire. There were people that go to a whole bunch of different churches around. So yeah, there was a Christian group, and I knew of them, but they weren't in my group of friends. So I didn't go super frequently. Yeah. But yeah, there was something, some lunchtime event.
What were your friends' reactions to you going to youth group on Friday nights?
I'm trying to remember.
Are you trying to be diplomatic?
No, I'm trying to remember high school. I don't know. I assume there was a bit of payouts, but there's nothing scarring that I feel like.
Long-lasting wounds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a while ago now. No, I don't really remember. They were probably a bit annoyed that I would have missed some events if I chose that over doing stuff with them or whatever, but nothing too dramatic from memory.
Nothing too dramatic. Write that down as a title idea. While I do that, Braden, do you want to ask Ross a question? Not too.
What? Okay.
Well, actually, so one thing, coming from
Yes.
Caringbah High and going to a youth group, you probably had the similar experience where I found that the youth group was mostly Kirrawee High School people. And so that was a little bit interesting, or like it was a little bit harder to kind of make friends or whatever, because you don't know as many people at the youth group.
They're also just like spending so much more time together.
Yeah, exactly. They already
yeah.
have established friendships, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of turning up,
Yeah.
joining this youth group from a different school
Yeah.
background.
We had a reasonably large group of us, and apparently what we did, and I don't remember this, but I'm sure it's true, that we just stayed in our group from our school, because I think we had sometimes had 6 or 7 of us.
Yeah.
We just go sit in an area of the factory at the time, or the venue, and then just sit on lounges for that whole time, which Michael Greaves tells me that's what we did, but I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't know why I don't remember. I usually have a good memory for things, but yeah. So it was kind of like that. It was kind of like, but there was 2 separate groups.
Yeah.
It was like the Kirrawee High people, and then there was us,
Yeah.
the rejects. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted your question, Braden. You were asking a question.
I can't remember what I was saying, so that works well.
So polished.
We need to make it clear to you, Ross, and everyone else who's listening, we don't prepare anything for these podcasts.
We've got 3 questions.
We've got 3 questions.
And it
that's
shows.
Oh.
Righto. Well,
Righto.
I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
All right.
So-
All right.
You mentioned that it maybe was a little bit harder rocking up to youth and being a little bit on the outside with maybe a Kirrawee High dominant demographic. What made you keep going back to youth? Like, if you found it a bit harder, what kept you persisting in that?
Like, there was obviously some time in there that I would have, like, that I was calling myself a Christian already, and so wanted to go to a Christian youth group. Like I said, I don't know that date and time, but there's definitely that. And it wasn't like I just sat in the corner by myself. Like, it was something that was a thing, but not like, I still got on with people. And also I had known, because Mon had been at the church for a while, I knew a lot of the leaders as well.
How much older is Mon than you?
8 years.
Okay. Yeah. So she'd been going for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the originals.
Is she OG?
She's real OG.
Yeah. She has been going to Soul Revival for a very long time.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to finish it.
Yeah.
What do you think if you were going to youth group and you're going in between different friendship groups in a sense? What do you think, let's say, a 16-year-old Ross was looking for at that time? Fame? Fortune?
A 16-year-old Ross. I don't know. Probably girls.
Yeah. That's why I went.
And friendship and I feel like you learn probably a more realistic answer is I feel like you grow heaps more as a Christian, or personally I feel like I grew heaps more as a Christian and worked more on my faith during high school than at other times.
Okay.
Because you've got someone kind of checking in on you more, like you've got a leader over you and you're like, oh, hey, we should work on this for this term or whatever, or this is the series we're looking at. So there's certainly this time where you're kind of learning how to be a Christian, which probably has more change in your life than once you're already, like if you've been a Christian for 10 years or whatever, you'll have different things to work on, but it's you kind of understand the basics, whereas you go from knowing the Sunday school stories which are all the the big famous things, to then actually starting to read the Bible for yourself, and
Yeah.
so then you helping to understand that for yourself was certainly a thing that developed over the high school time.
I feel like I did that more after high school than before, which is. I wonder if that was your leaders making sure you're onto it, or if you're. Is that the same for you, Braden? Do you reckon you?
Oh, for me, it was well after that.
Yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I suppose that's why we do this podcast. To hear different people's stories.
Yeah, I think I was coming to faith through that time. I think it took me a lot longer to really understand fully the commitment I had made. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
it's hard when you're 13 or 14 to realize what a commitment being a Christian actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I felt like that didn't hit me until much later in
Hmm.
terms of serious and trying to actually actively work at growth rather than maybe I might just stop swearing.
Yeah.
It's probably a good idea.
For a couple of weeks.
Because I think the thing that
Yeah.
you start with is you have more of an understanding of the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, Christians shouldn't do
Yeah.
swearing or whatever, and then
Oh, is
kind
that
of-
like low hanging fruit?
yeah, and then you kind of understand a bit more, like as you grow in
Yeah.
Christianity, then you understand a bit more of like, oh, why, like the whys or the.
Yeah.
You go from just like thinking of, a do's and don'ts or a laws list or whatever.
Yeah, and I think you're just pretty self-absorbed when you're at that age. Like,
Yeah.
I was just pretty focused on what I was doing and what I wanted to do, and I don't think I was really thinking about other things or other people that much. Until a little bit later on.
They can deal with me. I don't have to deal with them. Like, it is that kind of vibe. It's funny that like God makes us to just. I was thinking about this with like my kids and stuff. How you just like, there's just different stages that you go through as you develop, and once you get like maybe past 25 or something, it's a little bit. It's a lot slower. It's a lot slower as you get older. Like if you think of like a child from, like when they're first born to the age of 1. They'd learn so much in that time, basically from being born to a lot of kids are walking by the age of 1, whereas like the personal development of like your physical stuff, that's all done. But I think something that excites me about Christianity is you can always keep getting better, rather than you've achieved this level, so now you're done. I feel like sometimes I come across people that are still my age and they're kind of like, oh, my life's over. I'm like, oh, bro, it's like, fire up, let's go. Like, there's so much more that can be done. And I think being a Christian helps a lot with that.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that though, because I find that a lot of people kind of reach a kind of Christian enough life.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to whatever, your 20s or 30s, whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, like I'm Christian enough. I know the basics. I can recite the gospel. Maybe I don't read the Bible as often. Or like I found there was a time where I'm like, no, I need to like double down on and keep learning to keep growing in your faith, because you reach a point where you're like, oh, like I know I shouldn't swear or drink too much or whatever the thing is, and I understand kind of the basics of the gospel, and then it's like, actually there's so much more.
Yeah, it's tempting to get like sedentary in
Yeah.
your Christian life.
Yeah, you're like, oh cool, I go to church on the weekend, I might be in a Bible study, I've ticked a few boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of it comes to similar what you were saying before, like that kicked off this conversation, Ross, was during youth group, you worked really hard on it because you were encouraged to do it. You had someone saying, hey, let's think about this, let's read the Bible. And then when you get older, it's like you really have to take it yourself. No one else is going to really help you with that, because you're at a certain age, and then no one's going to say, hey, you're reading your Bible? Like there's an encouragement between Christians like, oh, what are you reading lately? But it still comes down to you taking personal responsibility for your faith.
Yeah.
And I think I sometimes see that in you, Ross, though, when do you still do reading plans?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's
years.
why. Yeah. Tell us about your reading plans.
I kind of got to a point where I'm like, oh, I don't know what I should read. And then you read like, or if you go, oh cool, I'm going to read Ephesians. And then it's 6 chapters. You're like, okay, that's a week. Now what? And then you'd spend another week of not reading your Bible at all because you're like, I don't know what to.
Got to pick.
And you procrastinate a bit, and then you just like, or you do Holy Spirit, teach me what you want today, and you just open the Bible. And like, that's the worst possible way. So yeah, I've been doing a reading plan for years now. Yes. The one that I've settled on for the last kind of 2 or 3 years is a 5-day reading plan. So it has maybe 3 or 4 chapters a day, but it's only 5 days which I really like. It builds in slack for the inevitable time when you miss something.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm up to date, or maybe a day behind, or whatever. So I've got my slack for this weekend to catch up on. It's really cool. You end up reading the whole Bible in a year. A few things that I like about it is that you don't have to think. You don't have to think about what you're going to read. Yeah. You've got a thing printed out, and you cover the whole Bible. Obviously, by just reading a chapter a day, you might not go as deep into stuff because you're not going to dwell on a passage because you want to keep going through your reading plan. Yeah. And then it just holds you more accountable. There's times where you're like, I just skim over it and don't really keep track of it. But then other stuff pops up all of a sudden. You're like, oh, that was really cool. I didn't expect to see that. And you only have that by consciously, like continually reading the Bible.
Like the habit.
And because there's so much in the Bible that you're not going to search out, and then sometimes it'll pop out to you.
It's amazing how many times you sometimes are thinking, oh, I need an answer for something, or I'm thinking about this, and wherever you're reading in the Bible, there's an answer. Like God provides an answer through it. I find that amazing. Like that's happened, I'd probably say 5 or 6 times in my life, but that's not a bad hit rate.
Yeah.
Like that happens. And I think if you're doing a habit, like you're saying, you're probably going to have more of those rather than less.
Yeah. And the other thing that, so a few years ago, Zach said he made the suggestion for our Bible study to switch to paper Bibles.
Yeah, nice.
Because we were scrolling on our phones all the time. And I actually had to buy a paper Bible because like I think the last one I had was one of the ones that I got at youth group that had like it was the CEV or some easier to understand version. Like, all right, I can be a grown up and buy an NIV. But yeah, at least I've done that, and I've printed out the reading plan, so it's all paper, and it's obvious. So I try and do it in the morning. And so even though I might not openly be like sitting down, all right, family, let's have a Bible time and we're all going to hold hands and sing and pray and whatever, it is obvious each morning that I'm reading the Bible and not looking on my phone. Because if you read the Bible on your phone,
there's a multitude
of people in the house. Yeah, and also people in the house don't know that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I have a paper Bible with a reading plan on a piece of paper and to just tick it off. And personally, I find it really helpful. And then I guess I get the depth of study from sermons and Bible study. Like we have a Bible study every week, which is following the sermon series, and usually I'm leading that for our group. So then there is still some time where I'm kind of digging in a bit deeper.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're getting it from both ends then. That's cool.
Yeah, I am super holy, as you obviously both know.
That's why we invited you on.
And I'm not sure why you laughed when I said that.
Yeah, I'm wondering why you left your halo at home.
It's blue and pink at the moment.
I just put it up there to light us up.
Ross, by the way, if you're just listening, Ross pointed to the lights that we have shining on our podcast set. So let's go back to your story. I remember you obviously finished school at Carringburra, of course.
Did.
What was the plans? What plans did you have?
So I was good at maths in high school. I reckon
Still are.
Academically, I peaked in high school. Okay. Seriously. So I went from
everyone? Oh, you've got
No,
a
as
uni.
in like
You got a-
through uni and stuff. Like I did a lot of maths at school. Didn't want to do a maths degree, but something maths related. So I ended up doing a commerce degree with an actuarial studies
Ooh.
major, which I thought would work. And I found that, like for someone that likes maths, I found actuarial studies insanely boring.
Really?
And so I very quickly dropped that down to a minor, scraped through my last actuarial studies subject with a pass conceded, which was
Oh, wow.
which was very
PCs.
pleasing, very pleasing.
PCs do get degrees.
That's what I mean when I peaked academically in high school. It was like, you know, got some good marks, and then by second year uni, I'm getting a PC, and I'm like, all right, probably need to ramp that back up again.
Okay.
So yeah, I completed a commerce degree, and started working from there.
Were you leading at church by that time? Or youth group?
I'm not sure when I started leading. Oh, I know.
You're a year ahead of me, weren't you? 2
Yeah.
years. No, you're 2 years ahead of me.
So I started. So I didn't lead straight out of uni, like straight into uni, like when I was straight out of high school. So straight out of high school.
Yeah.
I didn't start leading
Straight out of
youth group.
Compton, I think.
It's a different podcast.
I'm way too white to be into rapping.
Can you imagine Ross rapping?
No, thank you.
Ross the rapper.
I mean, we are all way too white to be straight out of Compton.
It's true.
I don't know how long I'd been going out with Quinn at the time, but her
We'll come back
brother,
to it.
one of her brothers, Zach, was in year 6. Her mum was the children's minister at the time, and I got
Tracy?
roped into leading on the kids, like the year 5 and 6 camp. I think it was extreme
Extreme camp,
Extreme
wouldn't it be?
camp.
Yeah.
Extreme.
Extreme!
Very extreme. So I led that, and then as Zach started year 7, then I started leading that year, and then we followed them through.
I think you were only 1 year ahead of
Yeah,
the
I
year
think
I was
we-
leading.
yeah.
Because you were in
We
the
would
youth-
have,
1 year of youth group, and then you left as we moved up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that would make sense. There you go.
yeah.
Tell me about your sorry. Tell me about your experiences leading with me.
So memorable that neither you nor I can remember that we actually led together.
Just upset Ross when I do that pretend arrogance thing. You go, oh, so memorable. Okay, so but you also mentioned Quinn. So
Yep.
how does
Who's
that?
Quinn?
Yeah, who's Quinn?
Who is Quinn?
Who is Quinn?
Who is Quinn? Quinn
And
is
how
my,
did that eventuate?
my lovely wife.
Oh, can you explain the favourite wife thing too? Because I did refer to that, but we never explained it earlier. That's a funny story.
I traveled a bit for work, and one time I went to Hong Kong, and I was in I went over to the markets and got a fridge magnet that was missed. It had the Chinese writing, and then the translated English that said "my favorite wife," and I brought that home one time as a gift. I meant that she is my favorite. She's like how many wives do you have? And like, I'm glad I'm the top, and it my gift also got lost in translation, but I'm pretty sure it's still in the fridge. So
I think it is. I think I saw it last time I was at your house. That's a good one. It's a good memory of your relationship.
I only got that is because someone from work that I was with beat me to it, and he got "You Are My Angle" instead of "You Are My Angel." Well, that was the one I really wanted,
Oh, really?
but
Well, he
I
likes maths, man.
I like my favourite wife. I think that's a good one.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Quinn and I have been married for nearly 15 years. We first met the first conversation that I remember having with her was at the venue, at the factory
Yes.
over there.
The off-site one we had at Gymea Anglican.
She must have just started coming to Solis. So as in term 4, year 10, because she had had her formal and had something, like had done her hair in a certain way. And I just have this memory of the whatever, she still had her hair in. But the other thing, quick plug, if you ever get asked to join a cleanup roster, first conversation I had with Quinn was in the kitchen. We were drying up cups or whatever after Solis. So you never know who you might meet. Or
clean up.
Swing on a tea-towel.
Clean to flirt. Clean up to flirt. Flirt to clean up.
Singles ministry is kitchen ministry.
Be clean.
So we first got together, it would have been like maybe a year or so later. I was a bit clueless that she was interested.
The way you said it.
I used to be clueless.
I still am, but slightly less so. She has taught me a few social cues, like so I just got my license and a car, and
Another good way of building relationship.
she just happened to keep needing a lift home when I was
This is
going.
Karen. This is my story with Karen too, but keep going.
And I'm like, yeah, like I'll drive anyone anywhere,
course, babe.
even to Grace Point, which is not on the way to anywhere.
No, it's not.
Turns out she was interested.
More than just a lift home.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. First meeting.
Oh, I didn't ask about the first meeting.
No,
I want
but
to
that
hear
was
the
just-
whole story.
Oh, the whole story. So then we were probably together for a while, had intermission for a while, got back together again once we'd grown up a bit. I was kind of trying to aim till I was 25 to get married. I wanted to grow up a bit myself. So I moved out of home once I'd started working and lived with some friends for maybe 2 years. And she'd done the same and lived with some friends. Like I had a full-time job. Like I kind of wanted to know that I could support myself before getting married. When I proposed, I had made this photo book of us, and then the last page was "Will you marry me?" And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll take her for this picnic to Stanwell Tops, and it was like howling wind. So we ended up just sitting in the car, which was not very romantic. And after I proposed and whatever, for some reason, again, random story that you remember, there's this little kid that got out of another car, and rather than the parents taking them up the hill to where the public toilets were, this kid starts like weeing on the car tire. And we're sitting there.
That's very romantic.
We're sitting there in the car having like been engaged for about 20 minutes, just like what the hell? Why is this kid
On your car?
I think it was on their car, but it was like,
Oh,
we were
on
parked
their
next to each other. So it was like right next to us and obviously running
It was
onto my car. I'm just
yeah.
like, why are you
It
doing
was
that?
a strong flow as well as a strong wind.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I'm like,
Is it raining?
parent, you should take your kid to the toilet. Like it's
Yeah.
quite windy. You don't want any splashback.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Anyway,
that's problematic.
So yeah, we got married in 2008.
Great
so
wedding
really-
speech.
Speech about hot chips. There's probably other things spoken about.
Yeah,
Um,
it was
at the time.
prophetic. It was prophetic for this day. Why are you shaking your head? That was a
You
good
know
one.
why. That was not a good one.
No, but yeah, she's great. I like her. She's awesome.
Quinn was one of our first guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
Very episode 6 or something like
Ooh.
that.
Wow. All the way back in the archives.
Back in the
Our
archives.
times have changed.
Back when you had 3 kids.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
We're here to announce.
Collect them all. We have collected the full set.
Oh, is that right?
That's right.
That is correct.
Correct. So we got 4 kids together.
Yes.
They are also great.
They
I
are.
really quite like my kids. They're good value.
That's nice. I like your children, and a little peek behind the curtain here is they're all like, I feel like they're all quite individual. I mean, Koa, your youngest, is only 6 months old.
So he's getting there. He's
Yeah.
got stuff to work
He's
on.
close. I like it how your kids like all look really similar. I suppose a lot of kids too, but
No, yeah, but
they have some really interesting personality differences, which is
Yeah.
lovely.
no, they're great. So my oldest is very kind,
Yes.
and smart and responsible, and they all play really well together. My daughter is, like she hangs out with your daughter quite a bit.
She does.
And they like being let into their world, man. The creativity and they've got all these toys out, and sometimes I just go and sit with her, and it's just like every little doll and character, and they have a backstory, like, and an extended family. You can tell the family tree. It's like this guy's the cousin of this guy, and they're there's so much going on, and I'm just like, I don't know how you figure that out. And it was interesting when she was little. We thought she was a bit more like Quinn in some ways, but now I can see she's like, you can see elements in all our kids of how they pick stuff up from you. And then my 4-year-old is a very big personality.
He's so funny.
Very entertaining.
Yeah.
And now actually we were a bit unsure. You know, when each kid comes along and you're like, what will the older sibling, how will they react or whatever? Like, will they be jealous? And I think because there's a 4-year age gap, he upgraded himself from being small to medium and looks, and like he'll happily go and hang out with Cara and talk to him and stuff. It's good value.
I remember when my sister was born like 3.5 years after me, and from that moment on, I told my mum and dad, I don't call you mummy and daddy anymore. It's mum and dad. That's it.
And you got older.
It's just mum and dad. That's it now. That's it.
Wow.
Don't want to embarrass myself in front of this baby.
You were so mature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Don't worry about me. You
Surprising from the person I grew up to be. Right?
That was it. You stopped there at 3.5.
That's right. Thanks, mum and dad.
Oh.
Yeah. What do you think that God has taught you, Ross, being first of all a husband and then becoming a father?
Just to look beyond yourself, I think. Being a husband, like, there's no hiding. Like, she knows everything about me. Like, it's not like a friend or whatever where you kind of can put on a bit of a show and then you go home. Like, we go home together and she sees me at my best and at my worst. And so, yeah, just being able to find. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Just thinking about the world beyond me, and that it's us, not me. And then as a parent, it kind of steps up again. I remember when we first brought Kobe home, and I had put him to bed, and we're sitting on the lounge, and we're just like, oh crap! Like there's another life in this house, and we've got to got to make look out for him. But yeah, they're great fun, and I enjoy being a parent, and I enjoy my kids. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff that we learn. Fortunately, Quinn also she's great at a lot of that kind of kid stuff. I think we're both very practical, so it's like, all right, we're just gonna get on with it and do the things. But yeah, like she's helped raise her younger brothers because they're quite a big age gap, and is also highly trained in early childhood, degree qualified and stuff. So sometimes I will defer my knowledge to her, especially when they're real little. Yeah. And the other thing I think Quinn and I work on a lot is making sure we're on the same team. So we're not trying to score points against each other. It's not like, oh, I took the rubbish out yesterday. Like, I've ticked my box. Like, what have you done or whatever. It's just like we just get on with life. Someone taught us either before we're married or early on, whatever, like not to pay out your wife in public or whatever, like stuff like that, where it's like you try and build her up. But yeah, definitely making sure we're on the same team, on the same page is something that we consciously work on. And I think that's been a help for us.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't directly answer your question, but I just kind of rambled a bit.
It's all right. That's what we do on this podcast. Yeah. You hadn't noticed. Did you have a question there?
No.
Okay. I thought you did. You gave me the eyes. I have a question.
The question is,
See, this is why people, I don't get all this. I usually listen to the podcast when I'm
you're
driving,
getting
and I'm missing
half the story.
missing the looks apparently that you two are exchanging.
Oh, and X amazing edits.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
you check out the YouTube, Ek does some, in the last few episodes, he's done some amazing little edits
Unicorn.
in
There's
there.
been a Force Ghost.
Yep.
All kinds of
There's
things happening in the
text
background.
messages that come up on
Yeah.
the screen.
He does a good job.
Mm.
Is Ethan still scrolling to find those messages from?
Yeah.
I think he will be forever.
Yeah.
Um,
They're gone.
the question I was going to ask you, though, we didn't really talk about your career because you majored then minored in actuarial studies. What did you go into, Ross? Because I do like to make fun of you with this particular job, but I think I feel like you're Wolf of Wall Street.
That's not where I started. So because I hadn't worked that hard at uni, you can start applying for my degree, you can start applying for jobs in the last year.
Are they like graduate jobs?
Yeah, the grad jobs, but they were in. So my degree was just a 3-year degree. So midway through year three, which meant they were looking at these second year results with my path conceded.
This guy got a PC.
So I promptly did not get any of them. I worked for maybe 3 years in, it's kind of like fund accounting. So I worked for like a
Fun accounting.
It was not fun accounting. It was basically a super fund called State Street.
Well,
and
cool
just-
name, State Street. Sorry.
Not cool. It was a job. It's pretty boring. I realized as I started working in finance that I wanted to get into trading. I quite liked
Trading what? Pokemon cards?
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
Trading in the
Tazos.
financial
You'll
market.
never make it in the game, Braden.
Yes.
No, he would have.
Stonks and stuff.
Did they teach you that at more
Stonks.
theological college?
He would have made it last few years. That's pretty much what you've been trading in NFTs and stuff. They're not that far removed from Pokemon cards.
Yeah, llama
So
coin.
scams.
Yeah. So I liked watching the markets and wanted to get into trading. Thought that would be interesting. And then got lucky and found a job there in 2008, just as the market crapped itself and
Perfect timing.
a bunch of banks were like blowing up and all sorts of things. And I didn't really know what was going on. Kind of joined this company and you see all these headlines and like, oh, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did enjoy it and was there for close to 15 years, trading at Optiva. So they mostly cover the Asian markets out of Sydney. So I was looking more at Japan and Hong Kong. We stopped trading in Australia in 2014 or something.
Shout out to Ray in Japan.
Shout out to Ray,
Yeah.
one of my friends that, I was dealing with him. I was his client. He was a broker, or is still. So I got to meet lots of people from around the world. Most of the people that I dealt with in Hong Kong and Tokyo were expats from Europe. So
Okay.
rather than being, because usually the Japanese brokers would speak to the Japanese clients, and then the expats would speak to the Western clients. I got to meet lots of people, made some friends, and
You travelled a bit too, right?
a lot of our communication was via chat or via. It's like a glorified phone where you just press a button and start talking, and that's how we'd speak to the brokers.
It was like a direct line.
Direct line. It was a direct
Hello.
line. Push. It was actually. It was not quite that timid. Pick me up.
Could you see if they were already on the phone, so you couldn't talk to them? Like if you wanted
No.
them instantaneous, so would you interrupt their other calls, or
Oh,
would it be like a
they're-
waiting thing?
Their colleague would pick you up or something like that. It would on their side. Like I've been on the floor on the broker side, and it's quite noisy because all their clients are.
Yeah.
And they do the same to us, where they'll be. We might have multiple brokers shouting at us at once. But yeah, because you're just having these short conversations, then I would travel a couple of times a year, just to be able to sit down and have a conversation in person with them.
What was your favorite place to travel to?
Probably Tokyo.
What is that?
It's just a cool city.
It is.
I had there was less people to meet there, so it was less intense. When I was in Hong Kong, I was meeting like 7 people a day, and
I thought you meant like the population. Like,
no, as
population's
in
pretty high in
less,
Tokyo, man.
less just counterparts that I had to meet.
Yeah.
So it meant that I could walk around between meetings and walk through the Imperial Palace and just see the sights a little bit. And obviously everything's clean and safe and efficient. And I knew if I had a meeting there and I wanted to get there, I could figure out the train or whatever. Like it was all quite easy to get around, and it's a cool city.
Yeah, it is a cool city. How many times would you estimate you said buy and sell? Buy, sell, sell, sell.
So you actually say mine and yours.
Oh,
So the
gosh.
opposite of soccer.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Wait,
no,
no,
you get a yellow card for that.
you're not allowed to say that. Yes. So
Mine is on buying.
Mine on
Okay.
buying. It's all like
That's why we need to say put a name on it, Ross. It's soccer, not this mine.
Yeah, that's
yours,
right.
yours stuff.
Yeah.
come on, mate. If you want to bring up soccer and bad things that people have done, Braden, then we can go there. And
That is a highlight reel.
Yeah, I know. He's got a problem with refs, hasn't he?
things that people say on the soccer field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say mine and yours. It's like, I think it's a legacy from like when trading was still in the pits. I think I don't know enough.
In the pits.
In the-
is,
Like
The
as in
gladiator.
the
Gladiators
things that
thing.
you see in like 90s trading movies
Yeah.
where there's 100 people standing there shouting at each
no,
other.
they've got pieces of paper waving around and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, and they've got the hand signals. Mine, yours.
Oh.
Like that's as in I want to buy it, I want to sell it.
Do you like still like hark back to those days when you're on the phone? You're like, mine, just calling it back.
No, but you end up, if you're with other people from work, it'd just be like, oh, do you want a coffee? And they'll be like, mine. You start
They're
adding,
buying. Is that they're buying?
as in, no, I want, get me some, buy me one as well. You just start adding trading lingo to your conversations. But that's a very,
Does this bleed over at home when Quinn asks you something? Mine, yours.
yeah. when-
Nabby change yours.
Mine.
yeah, sold, no way. That is yours.
Mother's Day present, mine.
That is your baby. Yeah, not so much. She probably doesn't find it as entertaining as I do. So no.
You said you worked at Optova for 15 years.
Yep.
As an options trader, is that correct?
No, not for the last however many years. Probably for about half the time I was there, I was trading options.
Okay.
Half the time, what we trade was very niche and complicated to explain, which was our edge in doing it.
Not many of these dummies understand what we're doing.
Sorry. You end up trading more against other, like banks against sophisticated counterparties because it's so niche that, like, you're not going to open up your CommSec account and trade like a 3-year option. Or like if you do that, then there's a very high chance you're going to lose money. So don't do that. Like the stuff that we were trading was against other institutions.
Are you going to ask the question, what are options, or am I?
No, I'm not even going to go there, man.
I feel like you have to.
Do I?
The right, but not the obligation to buy or sell something at a specific time at a specific price.
So you option, okay, let's say Because they do this with oil prices too, don't they? I think. to a
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
degree.
Oil has a large futures market and then a large derivatives
I
market.
hope you're enjoying this, Greaves.
So I think if you,
No one is. This is why I
this
stopped.
is fun accounting.
No, I moved on from fun accounting.
So like if you're
Fun
gonna
accounting.
you go to other company and say I want to buy this specific. Is it shares or is it something else?
So we mostly traded indices like the index. So if you see you're going to get like Tom Petrovsky telling you what the market did. Your ComSec news update on Channel 10.
Yeah.
Is that the Wolfman looking dude?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
super
think he's
hairy.
shaved in the last like 15 years.
was
It's just
COVID or something.
Progressively got, yeah. He's gone work from home and they've invited him
Yeah.
back to the office. Like, dude, you need to shave. He's like,
Yeah.
nah. So yeah, it's more like when they say, oh, the Dow Jones did this or the S&P did that. We
Yeah.
actually trade mostly based on that rather than specific companies. We do a bit on specific companies, but yeah, it was mostly on the actual.
But the option is I want to buy at this price
Yep. So you might say,
in the future. Sorry.
Yep.
I want to
So-
buy this at $100 in the future.
yeah, and it's a specific day. So by the end of December, I want to have the right to be able to buy Commonwealth Bank shares, Greaves, at whatever they're trading, $100. So by the end of December, I want the right to buy Commonwealth Bank shares at $100.
Yep.
So you've got your expiry and your strike price, and then if at the end of December Commonwealth Bank's trading at $130, then you exercise your option, and you say, yeah, I've got it, and so you
Because you're
just
buying it at a cheaper
you're
price.
buying
than
it at
it was.
$100.
So it's advantageous to you. You've saved $30 on that
Making
particular
money.
share.
yeah, and then obviously if it's under, then you don't exercise the option, and then you pay a premium when you first enter that contract. You pay some money to enter into it.
So you're paying, yeah.
You
So
might pay $2 or something,
Yeah.
and so if you don't, if the stock drops or whatever, then you just burn that money.
Just burn it. You just
Or-
lose it.
Yeah, you
Because
just
you've
burn
already
it in a
bought
big
that
pile.
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, and it expires. It has an end date,
I see.
and you can use it, but you can use it like we have options in our lease for the factory.
Yep.
Like options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the options that I traded were equity derivatives, like based on stocks and stock market and stuff. But yes, there are options in more walks of life than.
Can I ask you what it's like being a Christian in that environment?
So it's probably more money focused than, like, I think most companies you work at are like profit motivated, but if you work in the financial markets, like you measure your profit every day. Like that's what you do. So it's only money focused.
Compared to another job where you're kind of producing something or
Yeah,
creating
you have something a bit more tangible. We might develop a new spreadsheet or a new algorithm or a new whatever, and
Brand new.
it's whereas if you build something or heal someone or whatever, teach someone, like they're much more tangible.
Yeah.
But I think, like, obviously in a workplace, it's like these days you don't really get paid out for being a Christian because you can't pay out anyone for race, gender, religion, whatever. But there was a few Christians on the floor, and sometimes I think about it. And some people have encouraged me, at least, that like, who's going to be, like, maybe you're the only Christian that they see. So there's less Christians in trading than there are in, I don't know, Christine. I did just listen to Christine's episode today while I was driving around, and she said that heaps of OTs were Christian. So you're surrounded by Christians. I was not surrounded by Christians. There were a few in the office. But then, yeah, maybe I'm the only Christian that they have interaction with. But we never really had like a long lunch break where you go and sit at the big table. Like, because I covered multiple markets, it meant that there was always something open. So when a market might shut for a lunch break, something else was still open. So I didn't really sit around like that. There was probably a little bit too much banter from my side. Most of the company are quite young. Like the general hiring is grads, so most people were in their 20s or 30s. So there's just, and mostly males. So there's quite a lot of banter, and we muck around a bit when you're like a bit of stress relief almost. So yeah, in some ways it's easy to be a Christian because you're not directly going to be
Can be attacked.
paid out,
Yeah.
but obviously there were times where I was like, is this like what's the point? Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
There was an encouragement when I was back at Gaimir, one of the times when we had Reg there, so the bishop came and filled in for a while. I think we were in between ministers or whatever the reason was. He was quoting some Wesley thing that kind of stuck in my mind. It was earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. So I was at least going, all right, I'm in financial markets. I'm trying to earn money. But then if I go with it, if I stop there, then that's a little bit selfish. So I don't know, God put me in that situation for a reason. So
Yeah.
I try and keep that in mind. And that was one thing. I had at least a few conversations with another Christian in the office because he was having the same question, like, what am I doing here? What's the point? Why has God put me here? But I think there's a reason why God puts you at every job.
Yeah.
And it just depends on whether it's just, are you there just to make enough money to put food on the table for your family, or are you there to be a Christian in the workplace? Like, so I wish I did have a job where you could stop and have a lunch break and chat to people, like, go and, like, Grace does all that City Bible Forum stuff and, like, go to that stuff, but it wasn't the case. I feel like after I left, I did at least get a bit of feedback from some people that I was, like, not a jerk, or not, like, there was a difference.
To the people you worked with.
There was some kind of difference that they noticed in me, and at least the simple thing that you can do is always like, oh, what are you doing on the weekend? I'm going to church.
Yeah.
It's just like that's like, even if you start there, you don't have to, like, I don't know, stick a cross up on the corner of your monitor or whatever, like, whatever you want, but at least kind of it might normalize Christians for people. You know how some people think that Christians are just weirdos, and
Ned Flanders.
Yeah, you get that, or you might, like, the only time Christians are in the news is when some big controversies hit some church or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually, I'm relatively normal. There's a scale.
Yeah. The hesitation really sold it.
I'm not at the scale of kind of being investigated and what some people might think of Christian, so I'm going to go with relatively normal.
Yeah. What was the personal best number of screens that you had at your job?
It wasn't a competition. It's just how we were set up. We had 6 30-inch screens. And then in the last year or two, they changed them all to 4 vertical screens that were bigger. They were 40 something.
Oh, vertical.
4. I preferred the other ones.
Oh.
Sorry. One other thing I had kind of kept in mind. Again, one of my friends had told me this was like when I was at maybe university age, he'd been on some men's camp or whatever, and he came back, he's like, this is a verse that and it encouraged him, and somehow it's still stuck in my mind. It's like something in 1 Thessalonians where it's like just get on with it. It's like basically work a quiet life so you win the respect of outsiders, or
Yeah, right.
Maybe we'll.
He's going for it.
Oh, he's going for it.
I'll try and find it.
Scroll.
Quick scroll.
I was just going to look at 1 Thessalonians. That's
See if can find it first.
Oh no,
You
I
found
did
it?
pre-look it up.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. You just play some waiting music here.
4:11. And 12, make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders and you'll not be dependent on anybody. I think I've at least tried to just get on with it and do my job, and not as much to engage in the politics. Like, be slightly different. Be Christian in the workplace with it maybe not being overtly preachy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, final question. Unless you have any other questions, I've asked you a number of times and thrown you
I
under
feel
the
like
bus there,
we got up to a point. There's so much more.
Yeah, what is more?
Well, I was just going to ask about starting Soul Revival.
Yeah, that's a
But-
good question. Do that.
Do we?
No, I'm happy to do
Yeah,
it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
I own this podcast.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
I
I don't want to get kicked off. I don't want to get my contract cancelled.
I own the rights.
What are you doing? John's trying to talk through his nose or something.
I can't right now. It's blocked.
Oh, thanks. Oh, yep.
Can we edit that
Can we
bit?
burn that microphone? Take it out the back and burn it.
Okay, quick.
How was it? Obviously, things wrapped up at Gummer Anglican. How was it starting again and church planning with Soul Revival?
Yeah, so I'll step back just a
Yeah.
few years prior to that. So we had followed through the youth and led, and then Quinn and I took over coordinating Solis, which is the young adults kind of group.
Year 11 plus.
We were in Bible study with Stu, and obviously regularly, like, we were co-leading that Saturday night and hanging out with him a lot. And so when it came time, like when he was leaving, it's like we didn't wait for an invitation. We're like, what are we doing now? Kind of attitude.
Yeah.
I think it was really fun. Like, it was super uncertain, and like we were meeting in a lounge room with 20 to 30 of us. And that was the year that we had Kobe. So we would also had a child in our life. Yeah, it was super fun. And you can see so many times where God's blessed us, where we got different venues to meet in. And I think sometimes over the last few years, as we've gotten to be a more established, bigger church, I've had to catch myself and just remember what it was like when we started. So when we started, we were just regularly on mission. We're always looking out. Any new person, you catch the eye of someone across the room, like another, and we'd both kind of go over and have this conversation with a new person, make sure we're always welcoming, and there was this energy and excitement to be welcoming new people and, figuring out what we're doing. And we're like, oh, cool, let's meet on a Saturday night because that works for us. And let's have a meal together because that's a really cool time to grow the community time. And now sometimes I catch myself now turning up to church and attending and not just sitting there talking to my couple of friends or family or whatever, and then going home. So it's every so often you need to remind yourself that there's still new people coming, and it's not just, now that we have an established welcoming team, it's not just up to them to do it. And it's not like, if you see the bin overflowing, it's not up to the cleanup team. It's just, if you we all know where the stuff is. And so it's been good kind of remembering as we've kind of gotten bigger what it was like to start with, and that excitement and hype, and kind of probably being more eager to be looking out for new people, make sure we're welcoming, and just trying to keep that in the back of our minds again.
Are you going to say anything else about it?
I could keep talking for
I think
ages.
but I think you were pretty pivotal in. A number of us were leading with you at Solis at the same time. Like Karen and I were leading Solis with you guys. And I think that your desire to lead as you had been led, I think impacted Karen and I a fair bit
Yeah.
on that. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was very similar to you, that as soon as Stu and Matt said they were resigning, we're like, okay, what are we doing next? And I think that was probably part of like our culture as a team.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important. I think you were trying to translate that from Matt and Stu and Jai and everyone else that was there. Jai had left before we left Gaimir, but I think you and Quinn were an integral part of translating that from what we were doing at Soulies into our church. Like sorry, not our church, into Soul Revival Church. It's just my podcast. But I think you were really integral parts of that. And to be doing that when you just had little Cobes, I think was a really, what's the right word? I think it was very strong leadership to do that. And I think our church owes this, I'd said it again, but this church owes a lot to that kind of stuff. You weren't the only ones, but there was a lot of us doing that. I think that is one of the reasons why we've been able to continue to grow under God, is that He's blessing our leaders. So therefore, as leaders, we're trying to bless everyone else as well. And I think that's a really important thing to value.
Yeah, thank you. I think, like, I know the way that we do church is just a model, but it's one that I really like doing, and one that I'm like, I can see a lot of benefit from. So I'm more than happy to, like, it's sure there's always times when it's a burden and you're tired or whatever, but overall I'm keen, and this is good. This is a way that I've seen people come to faith, people grow in their faith, and just grow a community, not just someone that you sit next to for an hour a week.
I think it means a lot that you can tell people that you really like going to church, because I feel like that. Like some people that came to church recently that are non-Christians, and I said it's literally the highlight of my week, and I'm not lying about that. It's like I'm so glad I have it as this central point of my week every single week to come and spend time in God's Word and to be taught the Word, and also then spend time with God's people. It's really cool. Final question. Are you okay with that now, Braden?
Yes.
When you look back over, we talked about a lot of stuff today, but not a lot about your life. But when you look back across your life, all 60 years of it, you guys took so long to realise that. When you look back across your...
Sounds so like in memoriam.
Still here, guys. Over here.
It's not a ghost yet.
And we're only a few years apart in age, but that's fun.
Yeah, you're still older.
You just cut off all the greys.
Oh, yeah.
What greys? Where are the greys?
Mate,
They're not there. They're gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Greys are better than bald, Braden. Take the hat off
Glass
and show
houses,
everyone.
glass
Take
houses.
the hat off and show everyone.
But they haven't been cut off. I dye them.
No, man. I embrace the grey. My brother's bald, and I'm more than happy to have it. Have the hair.
I
even
can't
if it's,
wait to go silver fox. You see those dudes that have like got really like tan skin, but they are proper silver foxes. I'm like, that's what I want to be. Anyway, next question.
Wow.
Final question is, when you look across your life of a number of years, what do you know now as an older Christian that you wish you knew when you were a younger Christian?
I think it's just worth keeping at it, keep the main thing. Like when I talk about having a reading plan, my life changes as I've got married and had kids. There's so many different steps along your life where it might be easier or convenient to not come to church. And I've seen people as I've grown up that, might have gone looking for a partner and left church, or started having kids and they put 17 activities a week on, so they don't, like, church becomes just not a priority or whatever. But I think for me, it's just keep at it, keep going. Jesus is still worth following.
Is it that? Are you saying like commitment? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, just keep working on your faith. Like, so keep turning up to church every week, even if you're tired.
Yeah.
Keep reading your Bible, even if you don't feel like it and you not have some divine inspiration Instagram photo moment with your nice cup of tea and your notepad and your 3 highlighters and whatever. There's posts. Like, you spent longer setting up your photo than
reading the Bible.
Yeah.
It's really true.
But you've got multicolored different highlights on your Bible.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably more a practical, just I don't know, grit or grind it out like that. Like, I'm not going to be a big flashy kind of guy, but I will continue just powering on, whichever one of those are appropriate at the time.
I think you're consistent.
Consistent,
We share
yeah.
that?
I'm not particularly, as I said, I'm good at maths, not at words and speaking. But yeah, let's go with consistent, regular. Any of that.
Committed. I think you're committed and you're consistent. I feel like that's what you're saying. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think now that we've got kids, it's like I want you to know that like church is a priority for our family.
Yeah.
I might not sit down and have a regular Bible time with our family, but they know we're going to church. I assume we'll do the same thing. Make them come to youth, like, because I can see the benefit of it. I assume they'll mostly want to come, but there'll definitely be times when they won't. And it's like, no, it's worthwhile sticking it out.
Yep.
Yeah. In saying that, sometimes you might notice that kids are also a very convenient excuse. So if you're just not feeling it on a night at church and you're just like, I want to go, it's like, oh yeah, like my kid's tired, so I'm gonna bail and be soft.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Kobe's got a bit of a runny nose.
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to give it to anyone.
Yeah. But no, yeah, keep consistently coming. It's when you don't feel like coming to church or reading the Bible, then just do it anyway.
You probably need to go more.
Yeah, like, or just do it anyway, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by how God blesses that. I'm sure there's been plenty of people that have talked about like when they led youth on a Friday night, and it's like you get to the end of a week, you might be catching the train home from work, and you're like, oh man, I should just keep going on my stop and go home. But you stop, get off, go and start leading, and then all of a sudden there's some amazing thing happens because it's great putting in the time.
Yeah. You're saying committed and consistent and letting God do the work.
Yeah.
And you're just there to be part of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been very lovely having you on, Ross.
Oh.
Even though I sounded very, very conceited for most of the podcast. Ross, it has been really cool to have you on.
That's been good. I enjoyed
it. Final words, Braden?
Oh, I love getting to chat to Ross. I remember I think a cool testament to, we talk about intergenerational ministry a lot. I think a cool testament to that is like, I have had a couple of chats with Ross. You were kind of a couple of years above me in terms of youth leading, so we never really crossed over that much. I was at Solis for a term before everyone left, so there was kind of not heaps of crossover there. But I remember, it would have been like 3 or 4 years ago now. It was just like a late night, and me and Ross were sitting on the lounge, and we just had a massive conversation. And it was kind of at a crossroads in my life where I was kind of trying to decide whether I was gonna go to college or not. And I don't know if you'd even remember that, but we had a massive conversation just about life. And after that conversation, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to college.
Cool.
So Ross probably doesn't even remember that.
No,
but
I do have vague memories of the conversation and talking about whether you're going to go to college or not.
But I think it's just a cool thing that, like, I don't know, like you have these people around you who are just a little bit, like Ross isn't that further up the road than I am. But
yeah, that's
like
right,
you
Joel.
can just sit
not
down.
that far, not that much.
No, but like
It's like a driveway all the way up to a farm. That's really long.
How often do people have those opportunities to sit down with people that are just a little bit older than them, that aren't related to them, and just chat through what does life look like? We talked about heaps of things, Christian fatherhood. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, and I found that really helpful. So,
I agree with you, because I feel like the same thing I was saying about you and Quinn leading us. It's the same thing. You set the standard in those respects to say you need to be committed. Make sure you're turning up. And I think that has influenced a lot of people, maybe only a little bit younger than you. Like you and Quinn have really set the standard for that. And I think there's a reason why you were leaders at Solis. Like God put you in that position. And same year where you lead at Sorrow, a Bible Church as well. It's the same thing. So I think you say you're not being flashy and you're not obvious, but I think what is obvious is that you are always there.
Yeah.
I think that's what I've really encouraged by you guys.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've learned is that, like, even if we talk about critical mass or whatever, just like being there creates opportunities to have those conversations.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like even like we are probably too old now for late night, as in the target demographic is more early 20s, and I'm not there, but we still do it, and we alternate each week, make sure the kids are safe and home and whatever. Maybe in another however many years when KP starts coming to late night, maybe I'll tap out. But Jai still hangs out sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
There, so why not? But yeah, like we certainly do like little things like that to prioritize being here and kind of fit the kids in around that. Yeah, that's certainly something we've tried to do. So
No, it's noticeable. So, well, thank you for being committed and coming on this podcast.
Pleasure. Being
consistent all the way across the podcast. And yeah, thank you, Brad.
No problem.
Thank you, Ross, again.
No problem.
Thank you to everyone listening and or watching. Make sure you can listen to it and then you can watch the edit on YouTube and see what Ek does on this particular episode. But we always like to finish with a one way. So thanks again, Ross, and one way.